All right, and welcome to episode 20 of Mythical Monster Investigations, where we're going to be continuing our look at Greek monsters. And this one is interesting to say the least. For deep in the earth dwells the hound of Hades, with its three throats barking, eyes blood red, and strands crested snakes amid its bristled hair, shameless and powerful. That is the description of course, none other than Cerberus. Now, Greek mythology is known for both its heroes and its monsters, but its monsters are really what kind of sets it apart because they're just so well known, especially in the West. Now, in the East, it's probably different, but in the West, everybody knows the Greek monsters. That again probably comes from our cultural influence, since a lot of Greek and Roman aspects of culture were put into the West, especially over in the States. But in Greek mythology, most of these monsters, especially the most famous ones, actually had as much of an origin story as any of the heroes. For instance, Cerberus, like many other monsters, was the offspring of Typhon, who is a snake like deity. And Typhon is actually extraordinarily powerful. In fact, he was the deity that almost killed Zeus. In fact, he did straight up beat Zeus, but Zeus managed to get his tendons reattached and take out Typhon and I believe seal him away until Doomsday again, where he would battle with the great Zeus and basically destroy the world. Which it is interesting that Zeus's main terrifying baddie monster is a snake deity. So again, you have this sky versus snake deity, but we're not going to touch into that.
And in time for Year of the Snake.
And in time for Year of the Snake, there you go. Happy now?
Yes.
Well, actually, yes, because snakes are going to play a big part in this discussion.
Yes.
Because Typhon was the father and the mother was named Echidna, not to be confused with the animal that Knuckles is from Sonic the Hedgehog.
I should have
Uh,
Pedro and Knuckles in here. Damn it. Let me stop
I was
that.
half expecting you. I am now disappointed that you don't have one
that is
ready.
why I did not tell you her name. That is why, because I
I
knew you would do that.
I knew her name, but shoot, I
You
didn't
never
think to
heard it
do it.
pronounced properly. Ha!
No, I did. I did know it was pronounced that way. I just didn't think to do that.
Yeah, and I know, and I wasn't going to give you the idea. Now, she is half woman, half serpent, and these two created a lot of monsters. In fact, their entire family tree is just various monsters, many of them that Hercules actually fought, which, again, Hercules is going to play a big part in this, because I believe the Hydra was also one of their children, right? That's what
No,
wasn't the Hydra one of their children,
I believe so. I
or
know.
was it not?
It was
Okay,
more.
well, the Nemean lion was. So no, wait, there it is, Leftherian Hydra. Yeah, so the Hydra was also one of their children. They spawned a lot of monsters.
Because I
So,
know Echidna was the mother of all the monsters.
yes. So that's it. Now, some of these monsters are fairly simplistic and explainable, like the Nemean lion was just a very ferocious lion. But others were bizarre and absolutely seem to defy explanation. And one such is, of course, the subject of our talk today, which is Cerberus. And Cerberus is a seemingly impossible creature. Now, the question is about Cerberus is it a thing of imagination, symbolism, or is it something more? Now, we have a bit of a problem with Cerberus is that there's not many myths. The most well known, of course, is Hercules' last labor of his 12 labors, which was to bring back Cerberus to the king that he was working for, which, of course, he's Hercules, he did. But other than that, he's really only mentioned two other times. Once with Orpheus, who went down to Hades to get his dead wife and subdued the dog with his beautiful lyre playing. And it was mentioned briefly by Homer, I believe. But Homer didn't actually really describe the beast. So we don't have a lot of myths to really go on to really give a clear interpretation of what could have inspired the myth of Hades' guard dog, Cerberus. Now, um, today it's known as the three-headed guard dog, and its responsibilities, as one would figure, was guarding the underworld. It would make sure that souls didn't leave, and it would. No, that was basically it. It made sure souls didn't leave. That's what Cerberus was meant to do. And that was the whole point of getting it past Orpheus, and it's been pretty standard for that. So while a clear image isn't really shown, there's a lot of different things besides being few myths, is that it is the guard dog of Hades. And Hades and Cerberus shared a very common taboo. And that was you weren't supposed to talk about them. Hades had this taboo that to mention his name, to tell stories about him or myths, kind of was tempting fate and invited Hades up to you. So basically, it was jinxing yourself to die. And it's very plausible that Cerberus, being his loyal guard dog and guardian of the underworld, had the same kind of taboo. So that might be why we don't see much. So, with the very little we have to go on, what does that really tell us? Well, one thing that's interesting about Cerberus is that we are not the only ones who tried to figure out what the hell this is. In fact, many people dating back to the 6th century have tried to figure out exactly what Cerberus is. And Cerberus is often depicted side by side with Hercules. They are intertwined. They always have been. And the thing is, as was mentioned in a previous video, most people believe that Hercules was a real man, probably a soldier of great renown who was sent on a lot of tasks and might have been unusually strong. Then again, he could have been based on several soldiers. We're not sure. But regardless, there is a general belief, even back then, that Hercules was a real person. One such person who tried to figure out what exactly this soldier may have gotten or what the mythical Cerberus may have come from was a Greek historian named Hecatus or Hecatus. Zed, how would you pronounce that?
Uh, I'd probably Hecatus.
Hecatus? Yeah.
Yeah.
Zed's better at pronouncing things than me. That's why I tend to ask him.
Yeah,
Um,
because going by how it's spelled, trying to pronounce it exactly. Yeah, I would say Hecatus.
Hecatus. Okay. Now, Hecatus was one of the people who tried to theorize what exactly this was. Now, he claimed Hercules was sent to capture the Hound of Hades, but he was one of the first to say that the creature was not a hound. Instead, he claimed that it was a large venomous snake. Now, this may sound a little weird, but snakes were actually the guardians of the underworld because they lived underground, they lived in crevices, and underground or the underworld was just that, considered the underworld. So snakes were considered both the guardians and to deliver messages to the underworld. So if there was a large poisonous snake biting people, it could be seen as dragging them to the underworld, and Hercules was sent to go and basically stop it and capture it. However, there are a few problems. One is, well, the largest venomous snake in the world is actually the king cobra, which are not found in Greece, but Greece does have several vipers. So it could be a very large viper, which can get up to a good 6 to 10 feet long. And snakes. Most people are scared of snakes. However, my problem with this explanation is Hercules' second labor, the Lemurian Hydra. It was described as a giant sea serpent. It was described as a giant serpent. So it would be kind of weird that they decided to change the mythos from one point referring to a snake as a snake and then deciding to refer to a snake as a dog or a hound, even if it is with the underworld. But what do you guys think?
Um. Okay, I guess my question is, when did they make? When did the part of the myth of Cerberus having a snake for a tail? coming to light?
That's actually difficult to figure out because um, that's actually, you see, that's something we're going to get into a
Okay.
little bit later when I try to explain it. But that's why Cerberus. Again, there's not a lot of myths about Cerberus, and there's even fewer that actually describe what exactly Cerberus looks like.
Because what I often think of with Cerberus is this.
Most people do, and to be fair, he's described in that, and that became the most popular image, which again we'll talk about more in a little while.
The other thing that get me is um that it's not just Greek, but quite a few cultures use dogs as the keepers of the underworld or the keeper of the dead. You have the Greeks with Cerberus, you have the Egyptian with Anubis, you have the Aztecs or Mesoamericans with there's a specific god of the underworld, and he's also god of thunderstorms. I cannot pronounce his name. It's very hard to pronounce name,
I know which one you're talking about. I'm not even going to attempt it.
but yeah. So they're all. I find it's interesting that it's not just Greeks who have the concept of dogs or the keeper or protectors of the dead. It's multiple cultures across the world who has the same belief.
That is true.
So
Which actually we're again going to touch into a little bit later, but keep that in mind because that is a good thought about it.
because
But I'm not gonna lie, I have problems with the snake theory because, like, again, why would they call a snake it in one myth and not call it a snake in another? I
well,
mean, it's
the other
just
thing that got me with the snake theory is um snakes not always seen as really underworld creatures in hardly any cultures really. Like they're seen as harbingers of death and death dealers. But
to the Greeks they were. No, the Greeks did consider snakes like guardians of the underworld.
because then my question came up with like they have so many snake monsters like Echidna. Typhon was regarded as having serpent like lower body, I believe. Um
Mostly made of snakes.
and Medusa, head of snakes.
Yes.
You know, all those creatures were creatures that dealt out death rather than guard or protect or excope.
Yeah, no, the snakes were associated with the underworld, but guardian is kind of a stretch.
Yeah, I think
Because
that's really
snakes were
pushing it.
thought to deliver messages and stuff because they came out of the ground or out from Hades, if you want. Yeah, it's a loose mythos, in my opinion, personally, but that is part of it. That's why I think that this one's kind of. I mean, I could see the logic behind it, but I don't really see it personally. Um, Other than that, there's other suggestions that Cerberus was just a dog, and the legend came from circumstance. One said that Hercules, or for all those who are like diehard Greek mythology fans, Heracles. Yes, I know his name is Heracles, but come on, all of us are so used to Hercules. I'm sorry, I grew up with Kevin Saburo or Sorbro as Hercules. But Heracles was sent to capture a large dog from a province of Tricranium, which was a land whose name, Tricranium, literally meant three heads. And he caught the ferocious dog in a cave representing the underworld. So basically, Hercules brought back a three, not a three-headed dog, but a dog from a land called Three Heads from a cave. So you could kind of see how that mythos could kind of change into the Hercules myth as going into the underworld to catch a three-headed dog. Which, okay, that's a little better. Like I could see how the myth would kind of evolve into that. What do you think?
Yeah, I can see that.
Like I said, that's what's interesting about Cerberus is that this myth has confused many people, including ancient Greeks. So clearly, even to them, it was rather bizarre, and people have been thinking about what exactly Hercules was. It also illustrates the point that our ancestors, like us, were trying to figure things out. So this story was clearly ancient, even to the ancient Greeks. Now, or, well, I guess the less ancient Greeks. I mean, it depends on what we define as ancient. But the point is, they've been trying to figure out what exactly this creature is. Now, this was another story, which is interesting. Another one said that Hades was actually based on a real king who happened to be named that, and Hercules, or Heracles if you prefer, was given the task to steal his prized dog. Why? For maybe intimidation, maybe for some kind of hazing thing. Who knows? But um, he was supposed to do it, and he was able to get the dog. Now, a the extra heads of the dog, a historian called Heraclitus, whatever, another Greek historian claimed that the dog had two pups who were constantly by its side. And this is actually a theory about the vase for those of us watching on YouTube, a vase with Hercules capturing Cerberus. You'll notice that the dog is a black dog, but it has two other heads, one red and one white. So that's the theory that it had two pups that always stayed by it, giving it the notion of having three heads, which actually was cleverly shown in the Hercules Thracian Wars movie
The
with The
one with
Rock.
Rock,
Was
yeah.
that what it was?
Yeah, the one
Yeah.
with the Rock.
Yeah, so something like that. So believe it or not, that scene is actually based on a real theory. And these are all very interesting theories. Each one of them has some circumstantial evidence support it. Each one has a little bit of logic to it. But the fact is, the evidence to support any of these is rather difficult. And the real question that needs to be asked is which came first, Hercules or Cerberus? And the fact is, we really don't know. And the most we can really do is try to question some of the symbolism to kind of give an educated guess. But before we get into symbolism, why don't we turn it over to Zed and play Who's That Monster Pokemon? Because I believe Zed's got some. Zed found it pretty easy to find one for the Hound of Hell.
Yeah, that was. Though Pokemon does not have any three-headed dogs, it does have a dog that I would say is a dog of hell. And that would be the Pokemon Houndoom.
Let me get that up.
Which is essentially just a dog. But you can very clearly tell where a skull would go. More specifically, Mega Houndoom, which, for anyone watching the video, is the leftmost image there.
Wait, when did it get a Mega form?
Oh, that's a whole thing.
X and Y with Generation 6.
Ugh.
But, yeah, I could see that thing guarding the underworld.
I mean, it's definitely guarding something.
What doesn't it Dex entry say it's like a guard dog or something like that?
Probably.
Makes sense.
Now I'm actually curious.
Hang on, I'm looking it up. Oh, one of its Dex entries is that if you're burned by the flames it shoots, the pain will never go away.
Hellhound shooting flames. I mean, yeah, that fits.
Yep.
I'm just curious looking now.
I'm looking for all of them. Long ago, people imagined its eerie house to be the call of the Grim Reaper.
Huh.
Okay, Jerry.
No,
And
that's.
it doesn't mention anything about it
No.
being a guard dog.
I just realized the irony that we're talking about a three-headed dog, and Pokemon just happens to have 3 evolutions of a potential hellhound.
Yeah.
That may be one.
Like it is a little funny when you think about it. I just thought about
They do
it.
now. They do talk about how it can breathe toxic gases as well.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, Cerberus isn't actually known to breathe any toxic fumes, though the snakes on it are, I think, supposed to be poisonous, but it never directly states it. To be fair, most people, when they think of Cerberus, just kind of focus on the 3 heads.
And one thing to note is Cerberus did have a two-headed brother
Yes.
who did have a snake for a tail.
Yes, though, to be fair, so did Cerberus.
Yes.
There's always a lesser brother. I mean, only 2 heads. Must have been the absolute laughing stock at the family get-togethers.
I'm sure there was one with one head that was the worst.
Yeah. I mean, the Hydra had multiple heads, so it wasn't that. So I guess the worst would probably be the Nemean lion,
It was just oversized lion.
right? Runt of the family. Though that does make you question how 2 snake deities give birth to a 3-headed dog. You know what? Let's not question it.
Greek genes.
Greek something.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other. Now I'm curious. Is there any other? Yeah, there's no other three-headed monsters that would resemble a dog.
Right?
There's other three-headed Pokemon. There's three-headed there's Dotrio and Executor and
Now there's several multi-headed things, but no multi-headed dogs.
yeah, no multi-headed dogs. 2 on the nose, I guess.
Yeah, probably. But still, you can see the Hellhound influence. Well, with that, now's the fun part, talking about the symbolism. And actually, Shadow R Fox, I'll ask you to pull up the original one you had with Cerberus and the snakes along its back and the tail, because that's actually a good way to start this.
Okay.
Again, for those watching on YouTube. Yeah, so this has become the popular image of Cerberus. The 3 heads, the back full of snakes, and the snake tail. Now, there were actually other interpretations. Some said that Cerberus could have 50 to 100 heads, varied snake qualities, even said that it had 1 head with hundreds of snakes on its back, but in the end, this became the most popular interpretation, which you have to ask yourself, why? Now, in many cases, we would start with the name, but as it turns out, the name of Cerberus is actually extraordinarily unhelpful. Because Cerberus is such an old name that it's very much disputed where it actually comes from. And a lot of people have kind of traced it back to an origin word. And Zed, actually, want to ask you something. Do you know what the meaning of Cerberus's origin word seems to be?
You mean its name?
Yeah. And I'm asking you and Shadow R Fox this because I know you're dog owners, so I think you'll find what I'm about to say kind of interesting or slightly amusing.
Okay.
They believe Cerberus comes from an ancient word that roughly translates to spotted. So the theory is that the god of the dead, the underworld, named his
Is it
guard dog.
Dalmatian?
No, they believe they named his guard dog Spot.
Spot. God damn it.
The age-old dog name.
That's Fido.
Yes. So, the experts believe that Cerberus directly translated probably meant something close to the god of the underworld naming his dog Spot.
I mean,
Do you see why I wanted you to, like, kind of.
okay.
Yeah, you see why, right? As
Yeah.
dog owners, I wanted to get your kind of reaction to this.
I mean, not a very imaginative god there.
Well, it is Hades.
But then again, this would probably be like one of the first dogs, so.
Fair enough. So, yeah, bottom line, his name is extraordinarily unhelpful. So, the only thing really left is to look at the symbolism. So, what is the symbolism of Cerberus? And how might that have kind of shaped his mythos? Well, his symbolism shows the importance to it in Greek culture and how Greek culture might have inspired it. The most obvious being three heads, or more importantly, the importance of the number three. Three was kind of a magic number in ancient Greek mythology. In fact, it's considered a magic number today. Three. In fact, I think that what was it? Didn't Schoolhouse Rock have an entire song about three being a magic number?
Unsure. It's been. Oh, dude, I never used to watch Schoolhouse Rock.
I used to watch them, but God, I don't remember most of them. All I remember is the stupid conjunction junction one. They played that one so
Yeah,
often,
Yeah, I remember that one.
3 is the
right?
magic
Everyone
number.
remembers it. Okay, so yeah, they did do that. And apparently the Greeks were a fan of Schoolhouse Rock because three was very important to them. For instance, they were ruled by three deities, three primary deities: Zeus, god of the sky; Poseidon, god of the sea; and of course, Hades, god of the underworld, who, for those of us looking on YouTube, has his loyal three headed guard dog right beside him. Which he's a lot smaller in the statues. Then again, maybe Hades is a lot bigger. So maybe size reference is hard to figure.
Well, each one of them have the animal that represent them. Zeus with the eagle plus some lions at the feet. Poseidon with his trusty dolphin who helped him get his wife.
Oh, is that a dolphin?
I think so. In the lower left-hand corner of Poseidon in the middle.
Oh, I thought that was part of his clothes.
That looked like a yeah. That
Could
looked
be a
like a
dolphin. Could be a dolphin.
Yeah, it looked like a dolphin.
Yeah, whatever. Where was I going with this? Oh, another rule of three is the fates. Most people remember these, the three fates that Perseus stole the eye from. The three fates were meant to represent past, present, and future, which some people believe that the Hound of Hell, his heads also did the same thing, representing past, present, and future. So maybe Cerberus's heads have a parallel. Maybe that's why no one can really decide how many numbers on the heads. Then going to the end of the underworld, it became this kind of three trifectas hate becoming three heads. And again, who's for sure? Uh, and then, of course, the serpent qualities, as mentioned, was because snakes were considered attached to the underworld. So it only made sense that Cerberus in some way had representations of snake like qualities. Now, as for the dog, you actually mentioned that other religions had dogs as guardians of the underworld. Well, I mean, it's to be expected. Dogs have been loyal guard dogs for ages, still to this day. I mean, they were warhounds at one time. So dogs have pretty much cemented themselves as man's best friend for a good reason, and they're great protectors. So it makes sense to incorporate anything where there's a guardian position with that of a dog. And I guess there's also legends of dogs turning against their owners with fearful monsters of dogs like the Barghest in the UK, which we may go over sometime. But what does all this imply to the origin of Cerberus? Well, honestly, it's not clear. Maybe it was just a dog who happened to have some interesting circumstances, like being born in a land that was named Three Heads. Maybe it is mixed with symbolism of the time. Maybe there was a king named Hades who everyone wanted to be dead. Then again, who knows? Perhaps the underworld is actually guarded by an enormous three-headed dog.
That's where I'm putting my money.
Yeah, like that's the thing is that there is such little information about this we don't know. And it's so little that even ancient Greeks and ancient peoples were trying to work this out. So, as to what it is, I honestly can't say. I think it's not impossible that some of the symbolism is happening. That maybe Hercules captured three vicious dogs, or a well, maybe it was a rare three-headed dog because there are animals who at times are born with multiple heads. It's rare, but it does happen. Though
Yes.
those rarely live for very long. Like their lifespans are often short. Then again, maybe it was a three-headed dog corpse, and that's why it was considered a dog of the underworld because it was already dead and it was just a novelty. I mean, for at that point though, Hercules might have been a thief. So I don't know. It's strange, and that's why I actually kind of hesitated to really talk about this monster and put in the book because although it's popular, there's just not much to go on. I mean, based on this information, what do you guys think?
Yeah. I mean, and that's the one of the other thing that get me. When did hellhound become a coin term?
That's hmm, I don't know.
Because that's the other thing that's been. Because I'm thinking that's maybe a modern day Christian terminology for things when Christianity was becoming more mainstream in Europe and stuff.
Okay, so the earliest record of hellhound is in the 11th and 12th century. Apparently, a version of the Anglo-Saxon chronicle Wild Hunts. Okay, demonic dogs that appear in folklore. So apparently, probably probably hellhound came more from like rapid or wild dogs attacking people in the forest.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I would guess, but they're very late, like 11th and 12th century. And Cerberus, and it became later that they started mentioning it with actual hellhounds, became associated with hell thanks to Cerberus, where hellhound originally was just meaning demonic dog. So it doesn't look like it has much. So it looks like that Cerberus and the hellhound correlation just happened to come together. So you're right, probably a more Anglo-Saxon Christian term than anything would have been used in ancient Greece.
Hmm. Because that's what get me is multiple cultures identify a dog as the keeper of the underworld. So I can't help but wonder.
Yeah, but
Hmm.
I think Cerberus is the only one with three heads.
No, he's the only one with three head, but
To be fair, Anubis is a jackal.
yes, but that's a canine.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a canine, just like for clarity's sake. And I guess technically he's a canine-headed deity. So does that matter?
I mean,
I mean,
would
I get the association with dogs
canines?
still. Yeah. So, but considering he's a guardian, perhaps just dog guard. I mean, even in ancient Egypt, they used dogs as guards, and they were loyal pets, which is weird considering how much they seem to worship cats.
Hmm.
Actually, did ancient Egyptians actually worship cats, or is that a myth I'm getting from spy dogs?
Um.
No, no, that was a thing.
Yeah. No, they did worship cat. It was because I think it
Cats
was
were everywhere in Egypt.
yeah
Yeah.
because they was I think what protectors of the underworld or something like that or
See, I don't actually know that. I just know that from the Mummy movie.
Yeah, no, hang on. I remember.
They were sacred animals. Like,
Yes,
okay.
because like if a cat, you wasn't allowed. If you killed a cat, that was punishable by death.
Oh, that's right. She was the okay. Battess. That's right. She was the animal of Bastet.
Well, that's one of the gods, one of the
Yeah.
deities who had a cat for a head and a female body. Um, but I think the whole, um,
Okay. Yeah. Cats were believed to protect people from snakes and scorpions, and keep grain safe from mice and rats. Oh, okay. That explains a
that
lot.
was the big thing.
Yeah. I mean, heck, even at my apartment, that's why we keep cats around to make sure we never have any rats or mice. They were thought to bring good luck to people who owned them. Wealthy families would dress their cats in jewels and feed them special treats.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? That's really not that different from today. It represented Egypt's most important gods. Killing a cat, even by accident, was punishable by death.
Yep.
Shit. When a cat died, its owner would shave their eyebrows as a sign of mourning. I mean, they were bald anyway, so would it really matter? And ancient Egyptian played a key role in spreading tame cats throughout the world. Oh, so it's their fault we have cats. Okay. Yep, then cats were thought to be far more special than dogs. This is what the ancient Egyptians believed, not me. So all dog lovers, don't come after me. That includes you two.
I mean, they did make the one of the deities a canine.
That's true, but wasn't there a deity that also had a cat head?
Yes,
I mean,
Basset.
to be fair, I think like every animal had some deity head version of it.
Yes, Raw was a what I believe a hawk or a eagle,
I think a falcon, as well as
falcon.
Horus.
Um,
Uh, Horus too.
and then you had the one of the gods of the underworld was also a hippo. Um, you had one of the other I think
Don't forget Thoth, who was Thoth an egret or an egret?
yeah, like an
You
anteater or
know that
something.
that long bird thing.
Yeah, and then another one was the crocodile.
Yeah,
Tobeck,
there was also Set,
horse head, I believe, or camel head.
uh, one of them had a ram's head. There was also one that had a bull's head, but it's not as well known.
Yes.
So, yeah, the ancient Egyptians were big on that. But sorry, we got off track. We were talking about
Origins of Cerberus,
Cerberus.
which is
Again, there's not much to go on. Like again, he appears in three stories, and one is Hercules, the other is Orpheus, and the final one is Homer. And Homer never even gives any details about it. In fact, all of them are rather vague on it. So, like, there was not a lot to go by, which is why I decided to write how other people have been looking into this and trying to figure it out. Which, if you want more detailed information about any of those, uh, please feel free to pick up the book Probable, Possible, Plausible, an explanatory guide to monsters and myth.
link will always be in the description.
Yes. And while we try to work it out a little bit more, like, okay, so we all kind of agree Hercules was probably based off a real person, right?
More than
Or
likely.
right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay. So, what? I guess for what reason would you ask him to go and kidnap a dog?
So several um kings back then would have hunting dogs.
That's
So
true.
it's very possible maybe the three-headed hound was the three famous hunting dogs for a particular king, or it was three hunting dogs or three different kings or rulers. That's one guess you could make about it. Another thing is dogs back then was used as war animals. Um, there would be now typically it would be whole units where they would have just um, dog tamers and huge units of dogs that they would unleash on their opponents. That was more of a Roman tactics, but you could I think it was also employed in the Greek peninsula by a few factions there. So it's not to mention Epirus, the city state of Epirus, I believe had a dog as their as one of their flags or symbol. Let me double check, make sure I'm not confusing that with Rome Total War.
True, but it also had to be important enough to send Hercules. Now, I do remember in the myth, the king of Tyrannus, who was, I believe, Eurystheus, who was actually Hercules' cousin, who Hercules found inferior to him. He sent him on this mission because, well, he was hoping Hercules would be killed. I mean, half the labors were literally him trying to kill Hercules. But Hercules still managed to succeed. So I guess that's also a question. Like, was he trying to do something he thought would be impossible, or did that just come later on? And well, that's the thing is also it depends. Like the myth would, or the reality of the myth would change whether or not the king would be sending Hercules was actually trying to kill him or was hoping he would succeed. Because that also changes the myth. Because that turns it from an errand where they're trying to maybe intimidate to a suicide mission. And if it's a suicide mission, then all bets are off.
Now another thing to note is there are breeds of dogs specific to Greek. The Molossus of Epirus, the Hellenistic hound, the Cretan hound. Um, so there was a lot of dogs
Yeah, no doubt.
to the Greek peninsula. It's very possible that maybe three heads, three different dogs of three different breeds. Maybe these was it could be similar to some of the Greek stories about them stealing prize cattle.
Yeah,
Um,
so
but in the
almost a
sense of
hazing
how it
ritual.
was also a danger, the danger of being killed when trying to seize the dogs, or if they were war dogs, maybe actually having to raid a camp and seize the war hounds.
Which I can see that, but then only three or only one?
Well, I mean, seizing three war hounds would be no small feat, just because hounds that are being bred for warfare, they would be very vicious, because
True,
one
but
of these would be enough to bring down a full-grown mane. Three of them would be pretty much a death sentence if you were required to bring three of them back.
it would also pretty much be a declaration of war at that point.
Not if it's just a single. Well, remember, Hercules at that point, he wasn't fully associated with the king. He was in his service, but he was doing. It was well known he was doing labors. He wasn't directly enlisted. So you could almost be akin to a mercenary going off and doing.
Fair enough. Though, to be fair, in one of his labors, I believe the stables, he did start an entire war after he finished it and conquered the land. So
Yes, but he
tough,
also
tough call.
yes, he wasn't paid, but at the same time, he also had the son of the king assisting him of
That's
that
true.
labor. So, and remember, in the story, Hercules negotiate with Hades. He doesn't steal it. He negotiate. So maybe something similar happened.
Yeah. Though the negotiation was wrestle down my giant hellhound and you can take him.
Which means what if this was wrestling down three of the largest hounds and it, let's say these were war hounds, and the king negotiated wrestle three of the largest hounds and you can bring those with you
I mean, that would be a hell of a feat.
to fight three trained dogs that are meant for taking down full grown adults for warfare with your bare hand. That's a pretty impressive feat.
I am genuinely wondering if it could be done without killing the dogs. Like, you would have to almost put them to sleep somehow, or if you manage to get your hands around all three of their necks at once, maybe.
Hmm?
But, that. I don't like. It's not impossible, but it does seem like a tall order. Is my point. I mean, I'm sorry, I wouldn't want to wrestle three dogs. In all honesty, I wouldn't want to wrestle one dog. I'd have a better chance with one dog, but I still wouldn't want to do it. Like, dogs bite, and as we're all people who have fought more than one person at once, it's not easy, especially when they're not afraid just to come at you. I mean, right?
Well, it wouldn't have has to be. It could easily been forcing the dog to submit or surrender to you.
Think
Hmm.
maybe Hercules cheated and had some treats.
Possible. I mean, in theory, these dogs would still have their collars on because their handlers would still want to get control of them when when they thought Hercules would ultimately fail and be eaten, killed by it. So maybe that's how Hercules did it. He managed to get onto grab the handles, one hand for each one. That's two, and for the final one, he managed to somehow knock it down and then put the third one his foot on top of its neck to pin it. That would essentially capture all three of them.
Yeah, the dogs might also hesitate a bit if Hercules doesn't show any sign of fear, because that's one of their big rules with dogs. Don't show fear. So, I mean, you can train that out of them, but that might also get them to pause enough for Hercules to do something. But that's the thing; it's not impossible. It's just, like I said, there's not a lot of information on it. So in the end, you're just kind of theorizing what it could be. So basically, the options we've got is either actual three-headed dog, three dogs, or one dog from a land called three-headed. Which, I mean, each one is fairly plausible, all things considered. I don't know. So I guess it comes down to which one do you like the most?
True.
What about you, Shadow R Fox? Which one do you like the most?
Um, Tough call. I'm still thinking on this.
Hmm. Oh, while you're thinking, Zed, which story do you like the most, or which do you find the most plausible?
I mean, my brain was doing a very stupid tangent thought of where this came from. This is just the origin story. Y'all have seen Gravity Falls, right?
Yeah.
This is the origin of Grunkle Stan's ancestor who just took three dogs and made a three-headed dog for an attraction.
I mean, I know it's a joke, but that's not impossible either. Like,
No, it's not.
I mean, Greeks loved their stories, so
Either an attraction or someone made it and put it on their lawn because they wanted people to stay away from their house.
I mean, again, I mean, the hell, that could have been part of the hazing ritual. Today, we have people who will steal statues of mascots from schools. Hercules might have stolen a giant stone three-headed dog to scare people. So, I mean, It's not completely impossible. And again, that's the problem. There's so little info.
Hmm.
And to be fair, I guess the Hydra doesn't have much mythology either, but I mean that one I kind of pulled the explanation out of my bum too. So take from it what you will.
That's,
So yeah, in the end, I guess just which one you like most, and Shadow R Fox, you're still deciding which one you like the
well, I
best.
mean, I guess the dog from a it does make sense of a dog from a place called Three Heads, and it could be just a very large dog.
Yeah, that one would make the most sense because at some point it would be lost in translation. The name that Three Heads is the name of the place, and someone would be thinking that they're saying the dog has three heads.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that probably is the most logical one. Because I mean, otherwise I don't know what he brought back. Because the other symbolism would be Hercules actually dying and coming back somehow, which that'd be interesting to kind of swing. Though I think they did a whole movie about people dying and coming back for some kind of thrill. So who knows? Actually, I think they've done that more than once in movies.
What struck me as weird is the fact that Cerberus have a snake for a tail. I can't figure out if that's only for the echidna angle or something else.
Well, to be fair, the Chimera, which is another monster we're going to look at later on in a future episode, also had a snake for a tail.
Yeah, but in this defense, it was a mixture of multiple creatures. That was like its whole gimmick. Whereas Cerberus seemed
Yeah.
clearly to be a dog.
Yeah. It also actually breathed fire, where Cerberus did not,
Yes.
which find interesting. The Chimera will be another one like this, where I'm just going to give off other theories because the Chimera is weird as well. Though the Chimera has got one interesting story that was proposed by a professor, and I'm not gonna lie, uh, I think this professor is seriously henpecked by his wife.
Okay.
I'm not gonna explain, but when we get to the episode, you'll understand what I
Okay.
mean. But yeah, so heck, that's Cerberus, and that's just the thing. Like most of these are theories, and the fact is, we don't always know. But it's interesting to look over some of the theories and some of the pieces of Cerberus to kind of figure out what may have been. But in the end, believe what you want to believe
Okay, I will
based on
believe that
evidence.
there is a doorway to the underworld, and that it is guarded by a giant three-headed dog with a serpent tail.
I should have emphasized based on evidence. And
The lack of evidence is not the evidence of absence.
that's fair. All right, believe that there is a three-headed dog in the underworld.
Yeah, you know what? And that's why I always keep dog treats in my pocket, so when I die, I have the leg up.
So instead of keeping 2 coins on you for the boatman, you keep dog treats.
Oh no, I can hit your vibe or something.
You would figure out a way to scam
I
the
figured you would steal the boat.
boatman.
I mean, I would try to steal a jet ski or something better than a boat. Now I have to row myself.
Well, according to myth, if you can manage to swim in that water, you become like invincible. So
Oh yeah, we're Achilles.
yeah, the river sticks. So I'm diving in. I'm going to try it. I mean, worst case scenario, I drown while I'm already dead, or best case scenario, I make it and I become invincible. So
I mean, Cerberus is supposed to keep you from escaping the underworld. So in
I'm
theory,
invincible at that point. So what's he gonna do?
if I can give a dog treat, I can come back to life. And the people be like, how the shell if I come back to life? Dog treats.
Gotta make sure you get the right dog treats.
I mean, it's probably been stuck down there for a while. It's not that picky. How many people do you know come back to life?
One.
Exactly. So not enough dog treats.
Well, I guess save for the various people that have been brought back by the Lazarus effect, which is recorded in medical. You know what? I'm not getting into this. Like, how did we get discussing how you're gonna cheat death with dog treats?
I'm just imagining meeting the Grim Reaper. He's like, you're the first human to bring dog treat to try and bribe your way back to life. Worst case scenario, I will toss them at his face and run, pull a bill in his head.
That'll be fun. You would be the one who beats him in a bunch of ridiculous games.
Yeah.
I mean, like all the training with the kids paid off, right?
Yeah, you know what? I'll be like, okay, here's the game. Who can eat the most dog treat the fastest? You go first.
You're already dead, so what's it matter?
Oh no, I can at least on two occasions I can either make death eat dog food and go, haha, I made death eat dog food, or I can distract her while he's eating dog food and run away and get back to life.
You're gonna piss off the Grim Reaper. It's like this is that moment where I'm like, no, I'm going first. I'm not talking to the Grim Reaper after you pissed him off. Well, I think that's the most we can say about Cerberus.
A little
Any
bonus
closing
to
thoughts?
the Grim Reaper. A little bonus to episode 1. Or a callback
Zed,
to it.
any closing thoughts that doesn't involve dog treats?
I mean, if you're going first for the Reaper, I'm going second. I'm not getting whatever.
Well, congratulations, Shadow R. Fox. You'll live longer than the two of us. You feel better?
A little bit.
All right. Until next time, I don't even know what monster we're gonna be looking at next time.
I don't remember.
We'll find out later.
There we go. See ya.
All right.